All right, let's get started with Unsouled, Book 1 in the Cradle series by Will Wight. I'm very excited about this one. So, I actually had a friend recommend this book to me, and I'm always skeptical of shorter books just because there's not as much time to do setup and pay off some of these like more intricate and more emotional moments as well. Gotta say, this was a good ride. One thing I really liked about this book, and I found surprising, was the blending of a sci-fi aspects into a fantasy setting. I thought it was super well done and gives really, really good context to hopefully the overarching story. This is only obviously the first book. There's a bunch. So, um, one thing that is interesting and is done from the beginning of the book that I didn't really realize that it was part of this until later on was that um, you get at the beginning of a lot of chapters like a report about something that's happening in the world, but it's read as if it's read from like a computer, and I was a little confused by where that was coming from, and it's tied into the story super well and actually relevant to the plot, but it's also a cheat in world building, so you're basically giving the reader exposition but in a way that makes it super accessible and also really cool and relevant to the story, which is fantastic. I love when writers do stuff like that, and it's just a creative use I've never really seen. And then there might be, more books that do this that I'm just not aware of, but I've never really seen fantasy and sci-fi blended this way. So I thought that was super cool. Um, there's a lot of good conflict in this story and stakes with the main character. Uh, there's all this setup. I don't want to spoil too much. So, but there's all this good setup, and we're rooting for the character just because of his circumstances. And one thing that's really crucial to like a really great character is having them make active choices, especially those who are the underdogs of the story, having them make decisions that lead them out of, their situations into a better situation. And it was really well done in this book. I really enjoyed that. Um, there's also one other thing that I really, really, really liked, which was there's a lot of things that are set up throughout the story that are like the main character reading through, text, things like that. And they're not used as a they're not just used as choices. A lot of times those things are used as world buildings where he's like discovers one thing that doesn't work, discovers a second thing that doesn't work, but the third thing works. And that happens, but it also happens to be that it's set up for other things that are important to him that he gains access to later on. So I thought that was really clever. Um, and it's kind of nice because that basically you get two birds with one stone, right? You get to build this choice that the character makes, but in the long term, you also get to use that as additional tools that are at the character's disposal without having to rebuild more tools. Um, so there's a lot of great things going for this book. And I'm really excited to get further into the series, which I'll be reviewing book by book. Um, One small critique I have, and this is partially a personal thing, and I kind of brought it up, was that size for a book this short, it's fantastic. But when you take a book and you make it this short and you don't incorporate, a longer setup time, which can sometimes pull out readers, unless it's done really well. Um, you you do lose those emotional impact moments later into the story. And this will potentially disappear with the length of the series. I believe right now there's 8 books out. And I just started book 2 today. So I'm really interested to see how this goes. But with the shortness, you're not going to get those hard-hitting moments that are in some epic fantasy books. Moments that, as a reader, you go, wow, that was definitely worth, the 1,000 pages I read to get to that one moment that just hit me like a truck. There were cool moments that I really appreciated, but there was nothing that was, like, over the top, like, this is, is making me feel like this crazy emotion that I am really relating to the character. The characters are relatable, but it's just not enough. Is basically what I'm saying. And again, that's just the style of the book, right? It's a shorter book, so it's intended to be something easy to get into. Definitely look at this book if you're looking at if you like fantasy. I think this is a great book. I'm not a huge sci-fi person. I read sci-fi here and there. I want to get more into it, but there's a lot of fantasy books I need to get through first. I have a very, very long list of things I want to read. But I imagine that this would be interesting for sci-fi readers as well a little bit, although it does tend to be more focused on the fantasy elements, at least right now. Another thing that's really good and I would recommend is if you're looking for a book to pick up and read in a few sittings, this is the book to pick up and read in a few sittings. It's pretty short, so it's really easy to get through. You're always wanting to go through to the next chapter, and I think there's only 20 chapters in the first book, so you could get through this I got through it in 2 days, but I'm also read/listen to books at an obnoxious rate. So, you could get through this in a week, easy, and that can be really satisfying as a reader to, get through a good story in that amount of time without feeling like you have to invest this crazy amount of time into reading a story. I was surprised by this book, and I'm really excited to get further into the series and see what else it has to offer. And as always, if you if you have any opinions, thoughts, critiques, other input for this book, go ahead and post it down in the comments below. We can discuss it. I just ask you be polite and respectful and keep your criticism to objective criticism / if you're going to use personal criticism, try to keep it not attacking people. I will be removing comments like that. So I will see you guys in the next book review.